This is the Traveler, Genshin Impact's main character, an outlander separated from their sibling by an unknown god, who awakens 500 years later, fishes out some emergency food, and begins to explore the world of Tyvat in search of some answers. Most players eventually take the Traveler off their team in order to build around their favorite gacha waifus or husbando. But while they may have Hu Tao, Bai Ganyu, or Thoma, yes, Thoma, carry their team throughout the story, it's supposed to be the Traveler alone who defeats all the enemies and saves each region from impending doom. If you've been a long-time viewer of the channel, then you know where this is going, and if not, hi, I'm Vasko and I like to put games' narrative to the test. I've been playing through several Pokemon games as their major characters, testing out their teams and seeing if their skills and abilities are on par with what the story claims. And now, I want to do the same in Genshin. I want to see if the Traveler has what it takes to save Tyvat from all its troubles. Welcome to the Traveler solo run of Genshin Impact. I asked my community which character they'd rather see for this series, and since Aether won the majority vote, aw man, I'll be playing through the game as the male twin. Not knowing how hard it would be to fight off the early game enemies, I decided to quickly pillage a couple of Hilichurl camps and level up the Traveler a bit. I might have leveled him a bit too much since her presence accidentally scared away the giant dragon that's supposed to be our final boss. Since everyone kind of ran off, we continued down the path only to run into the first character we'll never use, Outlander Amber. And then the game immediately makes me use her, just to teach me how charged bow attacks work. Whoops. Anyways, they reward us with a common chest which happens to have a silver sword for a Traveler. At first I was gonna stick to the dull blade just like in the cutscenes, but considering the game outright instructs me to change weapons, this upgrade feels canonical. Now that Amber is no longer on the team, it's time to go and do her job and take out this small camp of Hilichurls near Mondstadt. Her elemental skill does a solid amount of damage, but then this happened. My elemental burst decided to focus on the nearly dead Hilichurl that was running at me on the ground instead of the one that I was clearly facing. Since I didn't have a glider and couldn't really climb up the little perch, I had to slowly wait for my elemental skill to refresh and chip away at that last Hilichurl's health. And this wasn't hard, just annoying. I know Amber would have made this easier, but no Amber on the team. Our next step was to head towards Mondstadt, but Paimon likes to follow her nose, so we got sidetracked with Lynn's cooking quest. That's when it dawned on me that this survival expert was onto something. On my main account, I have Kokomi, who always keeps me healed, Xinyan to protect me with her shield, and a handful of support characters to improve my damage. During this run, I wasn't gonna have any of that, so I'd have to rely on my cooking for those supports. I guess the Traveler having good cooking skills makes a bunch of canonical sense here, so you best bet I'll be collecting all the cooking ingredients I can on this journey. There's one last thing to do before going into Mondstadt. That's right, I decided to respectfully swim around the bridge so I don't disturb the boy and his pigeons, even though there's a lot of chicken right there, only for him to give me attitude right after because the dumb birds flew away anyways. That's why your daddy left you, Timmy. Once inside Mondstadt, Amber gives us our wind glider just in time for the dragon's attack on the city. We quickly scare it away again by spitting wind on it or something. I don't know what this power is, how we got it, or why we never get it again. But the dragon flies off and we meet Kaya, who invites us over to the Knights of Favonious' headquarters. I don't really like Kaya, so instead of doing what he tells me, I decided to climb up the giant statue, glide onto the roof of their headquarters to grab that teleportation point, and help myself to this luxurious chest that someone casually left up there. I did find a Traveler's handy sword in that chest, but since this chest isn't quite part of the official story, I decided not to use it for now. Seems like they've waited for me long enough, hopefully enough to make the cavalry captain look bad. Having accepted me as one of their own, the knights asked for my help. Apparently, Mondstadt had 4 guardians called the 4 Winds, and the angry dragon happens to be one of those 4 winds. Now it's leeching power from the temples of the other 3 winds, so if we want to win this, we're gonna have to go and shut down the power sources he's using. But before that, the game wants to introduce us to Wagner, the blacksmith. I like the blacksmith characters in games, and teach us how to mine iron and convert it into weapon enhancement ores. Looks like Timmy got blown away by the dragon. Rip Timmy. After enhancing my silver sword, I hopped on over to the nearest temple domain thing. Amber was waiting at the entrance and joined me inside. This is where the game gives me a trio Amber, who is canonically with the Traveler throughout the domain, meaning it's okay for me to use her here, and I kinda have to because without her I can't activate this pyro mechanism that creates a draft to glide me over to the final part of the temple. Simple enough. On my way to the next temple, the game introduces me to the Animoculus and prompted me to visit a nearby statue of the 7, and since I'm playing through the game in a way that's supposed to follow the Traveler's actual journey, that meant I gotta listen to Paimon. Having received the blessing of the statue, I unlock some extra stamina, a wind current, and Kaya. I don't want that one. He tried to act all cool and warn me about all the big scary monsters that could be inside the temple, but all we found there were a couple of hilly churros, some fire slimes that got swept away in my water tornado, and apparently that's all you need to impress Kaya and get his recommendation to become a Knight of Favonious. After breaking the second wind egg, Kaya hands us a Traveler's Handy Sword, the same thing that we picked up from that chest, making the item canonical in Aether's inventory and sending us on our merry way while nothing of interest happens in the temple. This just leaves us with Lisa's temple, which is a lot easier to access thanks to that wind current from the statue's blessing. In this temple, we meet our first ever boss enemy, the large hydro slime, which happens to be very weak to Lisa's flirting.
You've been a naughty boy.
And was too shocked to do anything else. I, on the other hand, was quite upset at Lisa for calling me a hilly churro with some level of reasonable intelligence, which is why we part ways as soon as I break the final egg. When we return to Mondstadt, Paimon instantly goes towards Good Hunter for some food, but sadly, my adventure rank is not high enough to buy any recipes. Speaking of adventure ranks though,
Ad Astra Abyssosk Adventurer.
And now that we're an official adventurer, there's some extra rewards I can claim from the guidebook. When we finally got back to the Knights of Favonius' headquarters, Kaya decided to send us off on a hidden pirate treasure quest. I thought we were supposed to be getting knighted. Instead, Mr. Goose is just using us to spread fake news to the Adventurers Guild, solve riddles, and go to Springvale, which is not yet part of our map. This meant I would get lost and had to inevitably ask him for directions, and haha, this part requires cryo. Thankfully, a bunch of cryo slimes spawned in to attack me, and I was able to swirl them to activate the mechanisms. No Kaya needed. There, we found yet another map leading us into the domain that was clearly designed for Kaya, but could also be easily completed without him. Unfortunately, he shows up anyways and canonically joins the party to help fight off our second named boss, Ruin Guard Who 41019. Do these numbers mean anything? Anyways, the Ruin Guard had a fairly simple attack pattern, so I took it down with just Aether. After capturing a treasure hoarder named Izzard, Kaya gave us another sword as a reward, the Harbinger of Dawn. This is actually a pretty good sword to have, especially with its crit-centered effects, but it's not gonna be very useful early game since we don't really have any crit artifacts. Still unknighted, we return to Mondstadt and buy some weapon essential materials from Marjorie, and then run into Amber, who's been tasked with giving us a gliding license. After all, she was the one who gave me the wind glider in the first place, and now it's her job to make sure that I'm flying around legally. She also gave me a book about the birds in the breeze that was supposed to teach me all the random gliding laws. Instead, it was a short fable with a good moral message from the animal archon to the birds who first learned how to fly. What you lacked was not wind, but courage. This really resonated with me. For quite a while now, I've been meaning to explore and make content on other games, not just Pokemon and Splatoon. But I kept putting it off, giving myself the excuse that there simply isn't enough wind. My writing skills aren't good enough, I don't know enough about editing, my life commentary is I can't think of a good title, etc, etc. But what really stopped me from making this and other videos was my lack of courage. What if I failed to make it engaging enough? What if none of my subscribers care? What if this is the video she watches first? Uncertainty is terrifying. It's a dark, bottomless chasm that brings you face to face with the abyss. But if I hope to fly, if I hope to reach higher than I ever could before, I must face these fears and take a leap of faith. I need courage. What I lacked was not wind, but courage. As it turns out, a little bit of wind does help pass the gliding exam though. Sadly, we were interrupted halfway through the exam because some treasure hoarder named Raptor snagged an artifact from the cathedral. I wonder if it had good crit stats. We track him down to a domain that gives us another random skill, letting us drop bombs while gliding. And just like the wind shots against the dragon, we only get to use this mechanic once in this domain. After getting to experience the excitement Klee feels every time she boom boom bakudans, Amber once again joins the party and uses her marksmanship to take out a bunch of hilly churros that were a bit too high for the traveler to reach. And although Amber's been pretty useful so far, this Raptor guy decides to mock her and make fun of her and put her down. Look, I know Amber isn't the best unit in the game, maybe even one of the worst units, but you can't just go around talking trash about her, Raptor. You can imagine how happy I was to find out that this guy was our third boss and that I thoroughly enjoyed watching him lose to a single hydro-infused tornado. Man's like one of them animal slimes, just full of hot air floating around, puffed up acting all big and then just gets one-tapped. Loser. Having finally received their gliding license, we run into Jean, who's having a bit of a disagreement with the Fatui diplomat. She invites us back to the Favonious headquarters, where we randomly decided to show off the red gem left behind the dragon after it had ran away from the forest. Realizing that we've already done way too much to help out Mondstadt and that the tensions with the Fatui would rise if they learned that a random outlander is involved while they were kept at bay, Jean decides to finally give us the title of Honorary Knight. Kaya was completely useless in this decision, and her first task as Honorary Knight? Find a way to defeat the Valen. But that's a quest for another day. I think I'd like to do this series in smaller chunks like this, that way we can thoroughly explore the traveler's journey and any hardships they may run into. Also, that takes up a lot of storage space. This is just the first Dvalin arc. It's 150 gigs. I ain't doing the whole game at once. This is technically still the tutorial section of the game, so I expect to run into many more challenges soon. Let me know what you think about this series. Who's your favorite Genshin character? Comment down below, like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Yeah!